You're with the Newsmakers on the panel this week, Ali Jones, Yani Johanson and Jamie Gough. Now, the long-term council community plan has been signed off with $500 million worth of expenditure laid out over the next 10 years. Of course, Mayor Parker has honoured an election promise, a key one as well, to keep average rates rises under 5%. But what grabs the fancy of our panel from the LTCCP? Highs and lows, pros and cons, goodies and baddies. What do you think? Yani?
Right. Well, I mean, my view on the long-term plan is this. It is big borrowing for big spending. I believe there's a number of items like the convention centre expansion, the tram track extension that are simply projects, luxury projects that at this time we cannot afford. And if I look at the generation of people like myself, high student debt, high housing affordability issues, and we've also got an ageing population and baby boomers who we will have to look after. I think, although it's commendable that we've kept rates as low as they have, long term I'm very worried about the impact that will have on future generations. OK,
aside from rates, where would you accentuate the positive from the LTCCP? What are you most proud of as a councillor? Well,
the thing I'm proud of is the fact that after council took the money off budget for an Eastern Aquatic facility, we managed to fight to get it back on, although it won't happen till 2018, 2019. But fundamentally, what you have to understand is the economic situation we are in. For people like me who have never experienced this before, we are at a very, very unusual time in the history of New Zealand and the history of our city. And the plan does not address things around that. So I'm very disappointed it doesn't increase those regional land transport strategy targets. It doesn't support more community gardens. It's cutting community funding. It's totally the wrong approach. What we're doing is
Yani, I have to move on.
Investing in infrastructure, which I don't believe is going to be right.
Thank you very much. Jamie, your overview. Good, bad?
Oh, look, Mike, we could talk about the LTCCP for Newsmaker after Newsmaker after Newsmaker episode, and you would steadily lose more and more viewers, I would imagine. It's pretty dry, and there's a hell of a lot of stuff in it. Just to get Yani frothing, I thought the good was the tram extension. I actually think it's quite good for the central city. The bad, and I'll actually bracket that into the ugly as well, and I think the increase in the central city parking prices, because it's a step forward in revitalisation, but then it's also a massive step back. And I know people that are on the Central City Business Association board with me that say that will be the straw that breaks the camel's back, and they're quite seriously thinking that'll be the end of it for them. That'll put them out of business. So it's a wee bit weird that you say you want to revitalise the central city, but we're going to charge more people to go there. You know, I don't know how many times I've said this, but I learnt the supply and demand curve in fifth form, and it doesn't quite make sense.
It seems lazy, if I can be so outspoken, for the council just to every year ramp up that toll gate. It's just lazy management, isn't it?
Well, sometimes, and I won't drone on about it, but here I go. However, I think you find that not a lot of councillors can agree between whether or not parking is a public service or it's a revenue-gathering operation. And we know that we make $4 million per year on it, and I think at the end of the day we need to start putting some of that money back into subsidising what we're trying to revitalise.
Although is the tollgate actually just there to induce us to get on the bus?
Exactly, that's a really big part of it. Absolutely agree with that. And I think by forcing people, and this is something Aaron Keown gets into a lot too, is forcing people to do something is not necessarily the best thing to do, OK? But having said that, the LTCCP is actually a really important, very necessary document, and I think overall it does its job very, very well. There are two things that concern me primarily about it. Firstly, we have it signed off by the Auditor General's Office, OK, it's approved, it's fine, and then, oh dear, there's something wrong with the community funding issue. How many other things in there fall into that category? Now, how the hell could that thing be signed off with that being a problem? The other problem I have is things are signed off like the bus exchange, and then before you know it, there's another 50 mil on it. If this LTCCP document partly is to involve people in consultation and to the council to understand where people are coming from and what they want, if that's a big part of it, you can't just whack stuff in the LTCCP and then let it grow and grow and grow like Topsy or a Triffid and alter and change and get bigger and bigger and then go, yeah, but we consulted and it was signed off in the LTCCP. And I have a problem with that, with the way these projects morph.
Now, the Botanic Gardens, the idea for a new visitor centre is not new. It has been on the plans for a while. However, this week, the glass-fronted design, there you go, was unveiled. $8 million apparently has been set aside for this project in the LTCCP. The Mayor has called the design revolutionary. Will this take the Botanic Gardens into the 21st century? Quick rip around on this one.
I think it's stunning. I think it's absolutely stunning. I think at $8 million, although we've got a chicken house, it costs us $25, and I think we could do a cheaper job.
You could get the botanics in there?
In all seriousness, I think it's fantastic. I really do.
Jamie?
Yeah, it's contemporary. It's very cool.
Very good, excellent. Much rather $8 million than $100 million, as we've seen with some of the other council projects. this to me is actually something that's been missing, and it's been well needed, and I look forward to it.
Now, the recession has placed the status of many temporary migrants in strife, and a number of them have gone to the media to highlight their plight. Jim Anderton, of course, has leapt into the issue, accusing the government of treating temporary migrants like waste products. There is a clear difference, is there not, between those who have got permanent residence as opposed to those who come into this country on a temporary work permit. Isn't this the nub of the issue, Ellie?
Absolutely, and I think I said to Jim Anderton during the week, now come on, this is not unusual, this type of situation. You come into the country on a temporary visa, situations change and you might lose your job and you will be asked to leave. It happens all over the world, and his response to that was, well, do we want to be like that? Well, you know, we can all be a bit fluffy and cuddly and hum and focus about it, but the point is, that's the way it is. And I would far rather have Kiwis in jobs than people in New Zealand on temporary visas. And I'm really sorry that families have to uproot and go home, and I'm really sorry that it's disruptive and hard for them, but I'm also sorry that's the way the cookie crumbles.
Jamie, I was looking at the story of the German family in the press, and without wishing to appear callous, Mr. Schauenberger was arguably downright stupid to ship his entire family out to New Zealand. You know, 3 kids, and he's a painter, for goodness sake, on a temporary permit.
Yeah, I think I'd be inclined to agree with you there. I think saying treating them like waste products is a wee bit extreme. And of course, you know, like Ali said, we don't like the idea of it. No one's saying, yes, absolutely, ship them off. We want to destroy families. That's what we're about. It's not about that at all. But you know what? Charity starts at home, and we need to look after our own first. And temporary workers, if they've been made redundant, well, I'm sorry, we've got to look after the people that have been paying their taxes their entire life.
Is that callous?
Well, you know, I think at the end of the day, if we're going to let people come into our country, then we do have a certain amount of obligations to allowing them in and what they're here for.
But they're here on conditions.
Well, you can't. Yeah, but the point is, Mike, you can't. In the bad times, you can't just have the. You know, you can't just enjoy the success of good times, and then when things get bad, I think change your approach.
The rules.
I mean, I think we should be a caring and compassionate society.
So should Mr. Schauenberger be allowed to go in the dole?
What's missing in our city, I think, and in our region, is a very clear strategy around migrants coming in, temporary workers coming in, and filling the gaps that we have. And we should have a clear strategy around that so that expectations are clear on both sides, us as a city, us as a region, and the people coming in.
Can I jump in here? I have never heard such a load of twaddle. We don't need another strategy on it. The point is they come in on temporary visas, they know what the rules are, and Mike's point about coming in as a painter and bringing your whole family here is a good one. You know, you've got to practice some self-responsibility.
Our society values the skills that those people bring, and I think to be completely hard-nosed about it is the wrong approach. If we want those people to come
argue about this during the ad break. I've got to go. We will be back very shortly. Do stay with us.